Thank you. Yes, I quickly want to orient people in this hackathon project, which is related to the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Atlas of Surveillance, which is the largest depository of known surveillance technologies being used by police. Um, and let me just make sure I can share properly. Whoops. There we go. Cool. Because you're going to get a couple of important pieces of information in terms of how to actually engage with this project. Um, so, by way of very quick background, I'm coming to you from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. For the last 30 years, EFF has been working through litigation, activism, and our technology projects to advance digital rights and secure privacy in an age of mass surveillance. I specifically work very closely with our director of investigations, Dave Moss, on the Threat Lab team, where we do a lot of different deep dive investigations into surveillance technologies, particularly those that are used to spy on journalists and activists and other populations that may come into contact with the criminal justice system. And through that work, we look at a lot of different police surveillance technologies. So drones, license plate readers, face recognition, gunshot detection, all sorts of different types of technologies are captured in the Atlas and also are obviously of interest to us at EFF. We are asked all of the time what police departments have this particular technology, who's using ShotSpotter, how many police departments have face recognition, and also, people who are working locally or simply interested in pushing back or at least scrutinizing surveillance technologies in their towns. We often are asked, I live in this particular city, I'm in Atlanta, what other surveillance technologies are being used in this place? So there wasn't until the Atlas sort of a one-stop website where a lot of this information was being collected. And I'm very glad to have people working on this project for this event because it really helps to feed this sort of knowledge base for all sorts of individuals. The Atlas of Surveillance can be found at atlasofsurveillance.org. It looks like this, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a half second. But we had two big goals with the Atlas of Surveillance. One, we wanted to create this searchable inventory of law enforcement surveillance technologies. And we also really wanted to engage with people who are concerned about these issues, and collaborate with students and volunteers and really sort of spread the word about these surveillance technologies while allowing individuals to really engage with the problems and contribute to the conversation and the possibility of solutions in this field. The Atlas, it should be noted, is a project between the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the University of Nevada, Reno's Reynolds School of Journalism. And every semester, Dave and I help to co-lead multiple classes at the University of Nevada, Reno. And we also work with dozens and dozens of students to fill out the data set that we currently have. A very important element of our ability to create the Atlas is the fact that law enforcement surveillance generally isn't secret in a lot of very specific cases, right? A lot of information is online. It just hasn't been aggregated yet, right? So these are news articles, press releases, community meeting minutes, social media posts. There are all sorts of materials online that already speak to some of the surveillance technologies that are being used. And we really need sort of a team effort to gather up that information and put it into a place where people are actually going to be able to use it. So this is the Atlas. If you visit the Atlas of Surveillance, you will see that there are multiple ways that you can sort of filter this information. You can either sort of look for a particular jurisdiction, or you can look for a particular technology. And I'll allow you all to play around with this on your own time. But we have captured thousands and thousands of data points across all of these different technologies through this system of crowdsourcing and the use of open source resources and public records requests. And so yes, our primary data sources do tend to come from these exact sort of efforts, and also existing data sets. So something I will throw out there is that if you know of another academic institution or organization or another group that has put together something that captures information on some of the technologies we look at with this with the Atlas, please feel free to email us and let us know, and that might get added into the Atlas or might be added into the collection of other open data sets that we keep track of on the Atlas website. We have at this point basically 10,000 data points. It's definitely under inclusive, but also is a really good data set for people to be working with to understand the scope of some of this surveillance. We look at about a dozen different technologies from thousands of law enforcement agencies, although only, excuse me, like a third of the actual law enforcement agencies that exist in this country. And we've gotten contributions from hundreds of individuals, and I hope we're going to be able to count some of you among that number soon. I'm going to skip over some of these things that I had sort of hoped to touch on, but just sort of broadly, surveillance is an issue. Mass surveillance has errors. It disproportionately affects individuals who are already over-policed and have historically been over-policed. And there's a huge issue with mission drift and skewed priorities and the chilling effects that this type of surveillance really has on our ability to move freely in this country as we should be able to. In the Atlas right now, we're asking that you focus on 3 specific types of technologies that are very common in this country. 1, body-worn cameras, which received a lot of funding and a lot of support from both sides of, all sides of the political spectrum because of its law enforcement accountability abilities. But body-worn cameras are, another type of surveillance. It's pretty openly discussed as a type of wearable surveillance for law enforcement, not as an accountability tool. And there are plenty of instances where body-worn cameras, of course, are not necessarily used to protect individuals from police misconduct, but rather to identify individuals after a First Amendment protected action or in other situations. We're also looking at drones, which are increasingly adopted throughout this country, and automated license plate readers, which tend to just sort of vacuum up license plates and the locations of individuals and their vehicles in a way that is generally shared across state lines. And if you are interested in learning more about any of these technologies, I hope you will reach out. But the really important thing that I want to do is just basically orient you in how to contribute to this project. So to find how to contribute to the Atlas of Surveillance, you will need to visit this website, reportback.eff.org. And you are going to need 2 things. That is an email address and also a group code. Today's group code is Aaron Swartz Day 2022, capital A, capital S, capital D, no spaces. When you are on the report back page, it will look like this. You will get a lot of these instructions on this page, but I do want to share it and just highlight a few things for you. So when you insert this information, filter by one of these 3 technologies, but not by state, and then you can click Get an Assignment. That assignment is going to be sent to you via email, and it's also going to generate this page, which tells you what your assignment is. So in this particular case, we are looking at the Pine Lake Police Department in Georgia, and that's important to note because this country has a lot of towns with the same exact name in multiple states. So we're looking at Pine Lake Police Department in Georgia, and we're looking to see whether they have any body-worn cameras. This page is also going to give you your research reference number. That's important for us to keep track of what is and isn't already in the atlas. And it's going to tell you to use a Google form to help keep track of some of the information. Now, so there are three primary steps here, right? We're going to search the internet for evidence that this particular agency is using this particular technology. And I want to note that through procurement records and other sources, we have a pretty good idea that some of these municipalities are using these technologies. So I guess don't worry that things are in here that maybe suggest that they don't have the technology at all. However, sometimes you're not going to find any open source information about one of these instances. So we really suggest that people try to limit their search to about 20 minutes. It's going to become clear whether or not there's going to be anything available to you to include in the atlas in about that amount of time. And so don't spend hours looking for things that just might not exist. Okay. You're also going to need to complete this Google form. And then finally, you will need to, once you submit the Google form, come back to this page and click this red Finish the Assignment button. This is what it looks like when you start filling out the page. So this is the Google form. You will select sort of the event that brought you to this page, include your reference number, and then let us know if you found something to report. On the next page, you will be asked for some of the basic information like the agency name, the city in which, and you can just copy and paste this from your assignment. Very quick, okay. So the agency name, the name of the city, the name of the state, what kind of law enforcement agency it is. So if you're not clear, if it's something a little in a kind of a gray area, maybe it's a school's police department, or it seems like it might be something that doesn't neatly fit into these categories, feel free to use this other section. All of the entries are reviewed twice before they're actually included in the atlas. So here we have a police department. It is going to be a municipal law enforcement agency as opposed to a sheriff's department, which would be a county agency or, another sort of cross-jurisdictional or state federal agency. And then we include this field here that says were other agencies mentioned in your resource. This is because sometimes you'll encounter news articles where an agency, is announcing its use of body-worn cameras, for example, but then the article will mention multiple other agencies in that area who might also use body-worn cameras. So that can help us generate new leads. You want to select the agency that, or the type of technology you're investigating. If you identify a vendor somewhere in your research, we like to know that, right? So a lot of body-worn cameras are created by a company called Axon or WatchGuard, and so it's helpful to know that vendor's name. And then we ask that you summarize very clearly, and there are some examples here, what you found, so that if somebody is very quickly sort of reading through the atlas, they'll be able to understand what kind of information, what kind of technology and some of the basics about its acquisition. So something that you might write here, and we ask that you keep these to like 1 or 2 sentences. We want it to be pretty simple. And we generally are asking for the form, XYZ police department purchased or used this type of technology in this year. If we happen to know how much money they spent on it, so much the better. But we're really just kind of looking for those basics. It does not actually help us to write out a whole paragraph because if people are interested in a particular area, they will engage with it a bit more. From there, you want to include a link. Those links can come from news, they can come from the agency's own website. They can also include Facebook posts or other bits of information that visually show that an agency is using a particular type of technology. So if you see a picture with an officer wearing a body worn camera, you can include that link here. And and usually it's just a Facebook page or an Instagram page or something like that. From there, if it came from the police department's, for example, Facebook page, you could just say that it came from the Pine Lake Police Department. And then you want to include the date, that's like the article date, the date that the post was made, whatever that date is. So let's just, and then we ask for the type of link. And we are ideally looking for 2 to 3 links for each of these. But if you're only able to find one, that's fine. We'll just include that. If you have any other notes, drop those in there. And then we ask for just a little bit of feedback. And particularly if this is your first time engaging with the Atlas, it's helpful to have your feedback so that we can make this all much more clear in the future. So once you've gotten through that process, hit submit, and then go back to your assignment on this page and hit finish the assignment. That's going to close it down on our end and make sure that we don't reassign that to anybody else, saving everyone a lot of time. Those are the basics of engaging with report back. Again, that address is reportback.eff.org. Your group code for this weekend is Aaron Swartz Day 2022. And we just ask that you keep within those 3 technologies so that we can sort of build that data set out more thoroughly. If there are any questions, I can take them. Otherwise, I can let you all continue on with your regularly scheduled programming.